Hello, it's Concord Wind. Finally, we can get to this passage. I made a video for YouTube. It's not going on TikTok or Rumble. It's just a YouTube exclusive. Because there's a guy on there that's like saying I'm a cult or I'm whatever, and so I addressed that situation. But anybody with any sense, with any reason, with any understanding of reality and the truth knows that, this isn't a cult. I mean, this is a ministry that's grounded in reality and grounded in the truth. And, I just talk about my real experiences, my actual understanding, and I share God's words, I'm just doing the best I can. My intentions are right. My heart's in the right place. And, that saying, good intentions lead people to hell. That's not true. That's satanic philosophy to try to stop people from being aware of their intentions. What God looks at is the heart. Just like Jesus said, if you commit adultery, or no, that's not what he said. He said, if you look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery of the heart. So what God looks at is a person's heart. What your intentions are, that's an issue of the heart, So if you have the intention to love God, to follow God, to obey God, to believe in God, if you have the intention to gain His approval, and if that's what you value more than anything else, is to practice the truth and live out human likeness so that you gain His approval, and if that's what you value in your heart, then there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to attain salvation, if that's, and if your intention is to sow discord, if your intention is to cause a disturbance, if your intention is to resist God, if your intention is to fight for fame and gain and to have status and reputation, if that's your intention, then you have to change your intentions, because those are the intentions that will lead you to hell. Even if you believe in God outwardly and do some of your duty, if your intentions are wrong, it doesn't, your outward external conduct doesn't matter. You may be, silent in gatherings, listening, and then you may even share some of your so-called understanding or experiences or whatever. But if your intentions are wrong, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be the most devout follower of God, and if your intentions are wrong, you're not truly devout. You're just a sham. You're just a fake. And the real and the fake will be revealed. And they're already being revealed. They're being revealed all the time. So anyways, let's read God's words. Got them right here. God says, if what people gain knowledge of and come to understand is God's disposition and what He has and is, then what they gain will be life that comes from God. Once this life has been wrought inside you, your fear of God will become greater and greater. This is a gain that comes very naturally. If you do not want to understand or know about God's disposition or His essence, if you do not even want to ponder over or focus on these things, I can tell you with certainty that the way you are currently pursuing your faith in God can never allow you to satisfy His intentions or gain His praise. More than that, you can never truly attain salvation. These are the final consequences. When people do not understand God and do not know His disposition, their hearts can never truly open up to Him. Once they have understood God, they will have the interest and faith to empathize with and savor His heart. Wow. I didn't read this before recording, so that's pretty amazing because that's very relevant to, you know, a song I made. When you empathize with and savor God's heart, your heart will gradually, bit by bit, open up to Him. Wow. When your heart opens up to Him, you'll feel how shameful and contemptible your attempts to make transactions with God, your demands of God, and your own extravagant desires were. Man, that's so true, because when I think of how I asked God to save me from jail, and I said, I'm going to fast, and I'm going to fast until I die, or you get me out of jail. So I'm forcing you to make a decision, and if you do save me, I will devote my life to you. And that was a very transactional, and it makes my face almost like flush and turn red when I think about it, and I feel so disgusted with myself, and I feel so embarrassed and ashamed. And sometimes I've even cried over it. You know, I've shed tears over it in the past. And, you know, so, I mean, these words are so true. And also I empathize with God because God is rejected by the world and I'm rejected by the world. And so I can feel and understand Him, and I can empathize with Him, you know, and I can empathize with His intentions even, you know, His goal to save as many people as possible. I mean, I want God to save as many people as possible too. That's why I do this, you know. When your heart truly opens up to God, you will see that in His heart is such an infinite world, and at the same time, you will enter into a realm you have never experienced before. In this realm, there is no cheating, there is no deceit, there is no darkness, and there is no evil. There is only sincerity and faithfulness, only light and rectitude, only righteousness and kindness. It is full of love and care, full of mercy and tolerance, and through it, you feel the happiness and joy of being alive. Yeah. These things are what God will reveal to you when you open your heart to Him. This infinite world is full of God's wisdom and almightiness. It is also full of His love and His authority. Here you can see every aspect of what God has and is, what brings Him joy, why He worries, and why He becomes sad, why He becomes angry. This is what every single person can see who opens their heart and allows God to come in. Opens up their heart and allows God to come in. God can only come into your heart if you open it up to Him. You can only see what God has and is, and you can only see His intentions for you if He has come into your heart. At that time, you'll discover that everything about God is so precious, that what He has and is so worthy of treasuring. Compared to that, the people, events, and things around you, and even your loved ones, your partner, and the things you love are so unworthy of mention, so small and so lowly to you. You will feel that no material object will ever be able to draw you in again or entice you to pay any price for it. In God's humility, you will see His greatness and His supremacy. Even more so, you will see in some deed of God that you previously believed to be quite small, His infinite wisdom and His tolerance, as well as the patience, forbearance, and understanding He shows you. And I also see like God's excitement. You know, like I've lived so many places, right? I've moved and traveled a lot, you know. More than, sorry, I gotta get these tears out of my eyes. More than, you know, the average person. The average person hasn't like moved as much as I have because I had to move a lot because of my mental illness, you know. And I've never found a place that offers free food. I've never lived in a place that offers free food other than like, you know, in Athens, this church had a blessing box where people would donate little things, but it wasn't the same. Those were more like, you know, ingredients to put into a bigger dish. It wasn't food that was ready to eat, you know, like garlic and stuff like that, you know. It was stuff that you have to mix with something else. It's not something you can just eat by itself, you know. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't, you know, whatever. It's more ingredient type stuff. But like here, where I'm living now, there's like food that's like ready to eat. that's donated to me all the time. And I see that as God's arrangement. And like one night I had made, I think, one of my best songs that I've made so far. I think it was one of the songs that I plan on promoting on TikTok. And it was like God was celebrating with me because somebody had donated to me 10 or 11 hamburger patties and 4 or 5 hot dogs, and they were all grilled, ready to eat with hamburger buns and hot dog buns. And I had, mustard and yum yum sauce, and so I was able to microwave them and eat them, and it was delicious, and I just thought, God sent this to me, and I was inviting him in prayer to join the feast with me, to be present in his spirit, and if possible, to possess my body and to taste the food through my mouth if he wanted to. I mean, just because I just want to be very intimate and share every experience with God, and I wanted him to be involved as intimately and as closely as possible, and wanted him to be there, and and it was, and I was just smiling and crying and laughing, eating the food. I mean, it was such a blessing. And I remember thinking, this is God's love. This is his excitement for what I'm doing in my ministry, and that I'm serving him, and that I'm changing my disposition, and that his work has been effective on me, and that I'm producing content that's that's worthy of being released in the name of spreading the gospel and spreading the testimony. And then afterwards I started throwing up. I didn't throw up all of the food. I was still full even after I threw up. It was mostly liquids I was throwing up, but I threw up, and I was suffering, and I thought, God arranged this as well to show me that his judgment, his chastisement, his curse is still upon me. Something I've asked for, and something that, when I praise him in the middle of my suffering, after just being blessed, Satan is shamed, and God looks to Satan and says, what do you think of this created being now? He praises me in the middle of suffering. God says something along those lines. I mean, to Satan maybe, and I don't know. It's just knowing God is such a blessing, and understanding everything that happens. I thank him for it. Everything that happens, I praise him for it. Everything that happens, I experience the fullness of his disposition, and I'm so grateful. So, yeah. All right. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, and goodbye.